Alright, the Eagles improved to 1-0 thanks to the dominant performance from Saquon Barkley on offense, and Zack Baun living up to the hype while earning the nickname Sack Baun. Plus, Nakobe Dean showed up in a big way and definitely made his presence felt. Meanwhile, the rookie debut for Quinyon Mitchell was stellar, as was Mekhi Becton's performance, with the Mountains stonewalling Green Bay defenders to prove Jeff Stoutland found another one. However, it wasn't all perfection, as Jalen Hurts did make several good plays, but also struggled with some questionable decisions. Yet even so, there's a couple reasons to believe Kellen Moore fixed the Birds' offense, so let's talk about that and everything else from Week 1. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? How about do me a favor and smash that like button, because we're 1-0. And we have Saquon Barkley, who was flat out unreal Friday night. By the way, shout out to the official sponsor of the Philly Special Show, Underdog. I mean, hopefully you guys have gotten signed up and took advantage of the insane lines for the Eagles running back, because between that and the other winners this past weekend, it was a really lucrative first week. Don't worry though, if you were late to the game, there is another one happening today. All you gotta do is use my code PHILLYSPECIAL when signing up with Underdog, and then take advantage of the free Aaron Rodgers pick in the game tonight. Just find one other pick to pair it with, and you're in business. Or like I've said before, my new favorite pick'em game is probably Streaks, where you start your streak entry by making a pick 2, and then if those green, you only have to pick one at a time from there on out, where when you green 11 picks total, you'll win 1,000 times your money. So get started and use my code PHILLYSPECIAL to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Check it out, or just use the link in the description. On that topic, that's not the only free pick Philly's gotten from the Jets, as the whole Hassan Reddick saga continues with Howie Roseman clearly being the winner of that trade. Yet more importantly, getting Mekhi Becton was phenomenal, as the Eagles' new right guard played lights out. Yes, I'll get to Bryce Huff, who had the same amount of tackles as Jordan Mailata, but again, we'll talk about that in a sec. Back to Mekhi though, the Mountain was mauling them cheeseheads. For real, the former first-round pick had about the best first start you could have, with a stat line of 0 pressures allowed, depending on which grade you use, 0 sacks allowed, 0 QB hits allowed, and 0 hurries allowed. Plus, remember back when Brian Baldinger called Mekhi Becton the best run blocker the Birds have? Well, yeah, the analytics might agree based on the first game, since Kellen Moore decided to dial up half of Saquon's rushes behind big number 77. And then even when it wasn't running behind him, Mekhi was just making pancakes. Also, think about this. Packers defensive tackle Kenny Clark is a 3-time Pro Bowler who couldn't get anything going against Mekhi Becton, with PFN's Anthony DeBona pointing out multiple possessions where he just stonewalled Clark. At the same time, this is what Jeff Stoutland does, so I wouldn't necessarily say I'm surprised to see the success, which is what I tried to hint at whenever I was talking to Justin Pugh about the potential. Saquon Barkley, he's got to be, or he's already said it, but he's got to be super excited and amped about it, right? Because he's played behind not the greatest. No offense, Justin. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. But I'm just saying. I mean, come on, keeping it real. So.
I don't know, man. We don't have to flash my career stats and Mekhi Becton's and see. Well, I don't know. I'm just saying. You're taking Mekhi Becton shots at me. Damn. I was almost. I wasn't. The Cowboys fans started talking about Trey Lance we had to put the kibosh on that. I might have to look, Mekhi Becton. You've been a great player, but you guys still go. I need 8 more years out of you before we start having this conversation. You versus me.
That's fair. He's got to prove it. He's got to prove it.
Come on, I'm trusting Josh. You're giving the guy the keys.
I know.
To the
He's got the resume, right? I think it's safe to say Saquon settled that debate in his first game with the Birds. Because come on, Saquon Barkley just reintroduced himself to the NFL. I hear you, that may be hard to say for a guy who's nicknamed Saquad, and just about single-handedly carried and spun his way into the playoffs when he was with the Giants. But number 26 made sure everyone knows no one can do it better, as the newly acquired running back ran for 109 yards and 2 scores, while also ripping off big gains and reminding everyone just how dominant he can be. Yet it wasn't just on the ground. Since early in the second quarter, Saquon flashed his game-breaker ability on a 18-yard pass from Jalen to get the Eagles the lead. For the record, that touchdown catch was the longest by a Philly running back since Miles Sanders caught a 32-yarder from Carson Wentz in 2019. I mean, he practically put the Birds on his back at times and route to 2 more scores on the ground, making Saquon the first player with 3 trips to pay dirt on opening day since Terrell Owens in 2004, while almost assuredly leaving Giants owner John Merritt in a world of hurt.
I'm going to have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that.
I'm in a glass case of emotion.
I'm still not sure how it happened, but Saquon is an Eagle. Plus, if you thought there was hype beforehand, seeing his ability behind the biggest O-line in the league is crazy. Which is why after a Friday night like that in Brazil, it's fair to wonder just how dominant he can be. And having said that, please make sure to check on your Giants friends. Also, I don't know if you believe in this sort of thing, but the last time a player had 3 TDs in their opener game, Philly made it to the Super Bowl. Of course, yeah, we're obviously looking for a different outcome from that year. Yet you've got to be optimistic about the Birds. Now, yes, I realize it's just one game, so I don't want to get carried away, but I'm buying the hype from Friday night. And just for the record, it's not just all fans who were the ones showing fandom.
He played really well tonight. He should have had 4 touchdowns in our total, but he did really well. it helps us out. When you get the ground game going, it helps with the passing game. So we're excited, that he's on that team, and, he started the season off right.
It was great, man. We expect that out of him. It was amazing.
How much does he open up the offense? What do you see the defense having to do to account for him?
He opens up a lot. He gets a lot of teams out of the too high stuff because you have to come down in the box and kind of have to account for him. So it helps a lot, but it helps even more when the passing game and run game is working real well.
We're so excited to have him, and he made some huge plays throughout this entire game. And he made it in the pass game. He made plays in the run game. I don't even know what he rushed for. Okay, Bob's going to pull that up for us. But he made some huge plays in critical moments and scored a bunch of touchdowns. And, it's to have him on our football team means a lot, right? Howie did a great job of putting this team together. He's a playmaker, and he's a great leader, and he's a great person. And people feed off his energy. And so you could feel all that, not only the plays he was making, but the energy he had and the positive energy that he had out there.
Got to give credit to the offensive line. It starts with the offensive line and Jalen making the right reads and putting us in the right positions. The O-line setting me up, making me look better than I actually am. And it doesn't hurt to have Dallas Cowboys, A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith. I'm probably on a scouting report, I'm probably not even top 3 you got to worry about. So it makes my job a lot easier.
I appreciate the humility, but ain't no way he's not even top 3. Heck, Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley even made a focal point suggesting stopping Saquon was their top priority in the game.
You lose that battle. You lose that battle 9 times out of 10.
This is the luxury of Saquon Barkley. He is at the top of most teams' lists. I mean, let's be honest. We call it what it is. But Saquon is that game changer. But again, he's at the top of the list. You game plan for him. You say you're going to stop it, yet he still has the ability to kill you. Like, talk about breed of one, but this dude is just one of a kind. Which, as you know, that's not just his talent on the football field. Since fresh off a 10-hour flight from Brazil, Saquon stopped at a local youth football game to show support. Again, par for the course for 2-6, but no doubt he just made those kids' day. So on that same note of those that might want to see the future All-Pro in person, how about a giveaway? Just do me a favor and hit that like button. And then after dropping a like, make sure you're subscribed and go down into the comments and type in Saquon, where I'll select one lucky commenter via the randomized spinner during my next live stream to win tickets to Monday night's real home opener. Meaning not only will you get to see Saquon up close, but you'll also get to partake in celebrating Nick Foles retiring as an Eagle on Monday Night Football. Again, just make sure to subscribe if you're not already to make sure you can get in on the giveaway. And I say that because nearly 50% of you who watch the channel regularly are still not subscribed, which is really a shame because I do so many giveaways that you're missing out. Plus, we're less than 2,000 subscribers away from giving away this signed Isaiah Rodgers helmet, so do yourself a favor, hit that sub button, turn the notifications on so you're not sleeping and you don't miss out. Now, while we're on the topic of sleeping, hopefully you weren't one of those in denial of Zack Baun starting at linebacker. Back when Fangio let it be known that he had the ability and I suggested he's the favorite to start.
How do you tell somebody that you care about deeply, I told you so?
I'm just saying, I tried to get as many people on the Zack Baun hype train as I could. But yes, I understand I've gotten plenty of predictions wrong. Yet Baun was one of those that seemed promising from the start. After all, with comparisons of Andrew Van Ginkel being made and Fangio making it quite clear that Baun was who he wanted, there was a massive reason to get behind him. And quite honestly, bro was better than advertised Friday night, as 53 was just about everywhere, registering 15 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, 2 hurries, and 1 tackle for loss, while also ending with the best coverage efficiency rating on the entire team. I mean, it was blatantly obvious, but seeing how much versatility and physicality the 27-year-old plays with was insane. Like, you can't tell me this dude's not a beast. And somehow Fangio hit on one of the most pleasant surprises from a guy who rarely saw the field in New Orleans, who just FYI, from now on will be referring to him as Zack Baun, and maybe Howie Roseman should look into a possible extension, especially if he keeps playing like this. Let's give Nakobe Dean some credit too, though, because he also played really fast and physical, absolutely lighting up the Packers running backs on a couple plays. Also, for those curious about coverage numbers, Dean only allowed 1 catch on 4 targets. Of course, that 1 catch went for 29 yards after biting on the play action. And sure, Nakobe had a gift-wrapped pick 6 that he just couldn't hang on to, leaving the reactions in the background pick to say it all and probably mimic the exact feelings we all had, since it simply doesn't get any more guaranteed than that. Still, I'll give him a pass, especially with the way that things turned out, but it did feel like a massive missed opportunity at the time. However, he made up for it in the run game and really showed some superb play recognition.
Nakobe Dean, he's in zone coverage, but watch him close. Again, they're in zone. Nobody's guarding man. Nobody down here is guarding man. They're all in zones. But look at his recognition. He sees his eyes on the running back. He sees these linemen start to take off. Now I want you to watch this. Closing speed. Closing speed. Bam. Chest to chest. Look at that tackle. Chest to chest. Boom. To the ground. Violent at the point of attack. Running it back for you. Watch Nakobe Dean Close, watch his recognition, and watch his violence at the point of attack. Recognize. He's already seen it. He's already moving before the lineman's moving. Closing speed. Point of attack. Chest to chest. Strike out your hips. Really good linebacker play from him today.
I'm not sure I expected to say this, but Nakobe Dean might actually have that other starting spot locked up, at least for now. No, I'm not buying into the super late report about Devin White looking to be traded, but Dean showed some flashes throughout the preseason and kept up that intensity in Brazil. So I've got to imagine Fangio liked what he saw, or at the very least, he's definitely feeling better than what PFF gradings show. All right, I think most of us take those gradings with a grain of salt, but there's no way I'd rank Nakobe as one of the worst defensive players from Friday night. Look, either way, Baun's job is a lock. And we'll see about Nakobe, but ultimately I think it just comes down to staying healthy at this point. Also, I'm serious on this, but when was the last time you saw the defense play with this kind of physicality? All I know is no one better say last year. Granted, it's not the most surprising to have the swagger back considering CD Deuce's return, but that energy clearly resonates throughout the entire squad, which is exactly what you see in Quinyon Mitchell. Plus, Slay wasn't lying when he said Q is born ready. Because the Rook was really good in his first professional game, registering 3 PBUs and only a 66.9 passer rating allowed in 9 targets. And shout out to Fran Duffy because there was a lot to like from the Rook's debut.
Quinyon Mitchell, this is the first third down of the game, first third down of his career. He's attacked vertically by one of the most dangerous height, weight, speed receivers in football in Christian Watson, and there is no panic to Quinyon Mitchell's game. He's able to impact the receiver, get his eyes back to the football, look, lean, and let the receiver know about it after the fact. This was big time from Quinyon Mitchell, his first real test in the NFL, but it didn't stop there because Green Bay wanted to continue to put the screen. You're going to get another route vertically down the field, this time from the receiver in motion. So they're hoping by sneaking him out there late that he's not going to see it, but Mitchell's got great eye discipline. He takes away the throw from Jordan Love, forces the check down. That's nearly picked off underneath. Again, Mitchell at the top of the screen. We're going to try and run the vertical route at you and then come at you underneath with the corner route. No, we're not having that. He breaks on the throw. This was one of my favorites. He lets Rashawn Gary know about it on the sideline. The rookie came to play in this game against Green Bay, and it happened time and time again. Was it perfect? No. Of course, there were things to improve on, but whether it was gadget plays like this one, the failed flea flicker for Green Bay early in the second half, or if they were just trying to test his eye discipline with vertical routes and then trying to sneak things underneath, Quinyon Mitchell was not having it for the majority of this game. I loved the route recognition, the eye discipline. We saw him make these plays from off coverage time and time again during his time in Toledo. Quinyon Mitchell, an excellent debut for this Eagles defense.
Q's coverage was unbelievable, and y'all tell me if I'm crazy, but I think you could argue that Q is the second best player on your defense. Okay, fine, it's just one game, but the most impressive part might have been the fact that the Rook wasn't afraid to get involved in the run game, as the 23-year-old ended third on the team in tackles. And while I did predict the Eagles to land the standout corner, I don't think I expected him to play as big of a factor in the run game, although Q's play in all phases didn't really surprise Sirianni.
The moment's never too big for Q. And I've seen that from Q from the very beginning. Obviously have a special relationship with Q's college football coach, was my college roommate. So he told me there's everything there is to know and told Howie everything there is to know about Q. And so we were so comfortable taking this guy because not only the play, but because he's not phased. The way he's handled all training camp and OTAs, he's not phased. Like, he's going against A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. Those are two of the best receivers in the NFL, two of the top receivers in the NFL. And that's pretty awesome, right? The ironing, sharpening iron, right? Iron sharpens iron, one of my favorite Bible verses. And we have so much of that going on this football team. Like, guys having to go against Lane Johnson, guys having to go against A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, guys having to go against Darius Slay. He'll be mad I said Darius, but guys going against Slay. And Q's a product of that. And so I thought he handled it well. He got a pass interference at one point, but they tried to throw deep on him early on in the game, and he made a big play. And, that's something I love about Q is his competitiveness. And you really saw that. Again, we were told that, but you really saw that as well at the Senior Bowl when he was going against different players that were all really good football players, and he was competing his butt off, and love that about Q.
To actually see this all play out like we've been hearing about at camp is hype. Plus, that's kind of how I feel about really the entire defense. By the way, I can't forget to mention Reed Blankenship either, since the Ghost finished with the second most tackles on the team with 8. And had a ridiculous interception that proved to be game-altering. However, while that part was great, I hear you that Bryce Huff was just about non-existent, not being able to get a pressure or honestly much of anything against the Packers O-line. To be fair, though, that was most of the guys rushing the passer. And considering how miserable of an excuse that field was for an NFL game, I'm going to choose to hold off on full judgment on Agent Zero and others until we get to see them next Monday night. Heck, people want to say Jalen Carter graded as the worst defensive lineman, but I think we know that'd be foolish to believe that about the Breadman. Just like the Packers fans' foolishness to think JC made a dirty play at the end of the game when trying to bring down Jordan Love. I mean, honestly, what's dude supposed to do? Of course, first off, the biggest thing is that thankfully the initial report from Love's injury is that it appears to be an MCL sprain and that the Packers QB will avoid a season-ending injury. Granted, the timeline for return is still probably 3 to 6 weeks, so I somewhat understand the emotional response seeing their QB getting injured. But it's a little bit extreme after the game with the Breadman sharing a pic of his DMs on Instagram as he received a ton of hateful comments from the Cheeseheads. I'm sorry, I know that I'm biased, but I agree with Chris Long's take on the play, saying that's an area where you're holding on for dear life because you have no clue what's going on around you, so you're just scratching and clawing to win and get a sack. Anyway, with that being said, I'm just glad that Love did not have a season-ending injury and prayers for a quick recovery. Also, I realize the Love play wasn't necessarily due to the field, but the NFL and Roger Goodell are lucky because there's really no excuse to have that of a playing surface for a big game. Yeah, while I say that, we all remember Goodell admitting Super Bowl 57's field left a little to be desired. And considering that the NFL was hopeful to put a show on in Brazil, they kind of unsurprisingly left it tainted by the shoddy sod. Having said that, did it really surprise anyone to see the NFL fumble this whole thing away? At any rate, speaking of not good play, Avonte Maddox didn't show anything on the field to suggest he should see the field over Cooper DeJean. However, the counter-argument to that is that Vic Fangio recently mentioned that Cooper DeJean's not where he needs to be yet. But Maddox was getting beat even before we talk about field issues, which is why personally I'd love to see Coop get some snaps at the nickel, especially if we're going to keep Q on the outside. Now, the other side of that token is the question with Isaiah Rodgers' hand injury, because if he does come back, then maybe Fangio elects to keep him outside and then Q's your nickel. Honestly, either way, the slot corner's got to be answered, since the Eagles were in the nickel nearly 3 times as much as any other alignment, which is why I say this is going to be fascinating to see how this whole thing plays out, but you guys let me know, what's your favorite grouping for the nickel? And while you're doing that, let's get into the offense, as Jalen Hurts made some good plays like on-the-money throws to Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown, with Swole Batman answering the call as he usually does. Plus, DeVonta Smith also came up big in crucial moments, and I think it's fair to say QB1 showed a bit more physicality and willingness to run at times, which was good, but there's no question Jalen's got to be better. Look, there's really no excuses for both interceptions. I mean, sure, give credit to the defense, but both instances were simply ill-advised throws, as those 2 picks now make it 17 INTs in the last 18 games for Hurts. Of course, let's not freak out as if we have a Daniel Jones for QB1. Thank you again, by the way, Joe Shane, for taking Danny I don't throw dimes over Saquon. Again, back to Jalen though, I was surprised to see some of those throws on Friday night, especially with how on the money he'd been during camp. Granted, there's no substitute for actual game action, so, maybe Sirianni should have played the starters during the preseason. However, no matter how you feel, the head coach isn't buying that this win shouldn't be celebrated.
That win, obviously, to escape against a good team, I'm sure you're happy about, but it felt a little like some of the wins from last year because it wasn't completely clean.
Yeah, it's not easy to win football games in the NFL, Jeff, especially when you travel 10 hours, and I know I know the Packers traveled 10 hours too. It was a good win against a good opponent. What I'm really proud about, Jeff, is it was sloppy. It was definitely sloppy. And both sides, there was things on both sides that looked like that was sloppy, but we were able as a football team to persevere through some dark moments, right? The dog mentality, the mental toughness, meaning the same thing, having the same attitude, effort, and energy no matter what the circumstances, not only serves these guys well as football players, but it's going to serve them well in life because life's hard. And these guys are fought through some tough stuff. And I know we got tough guys and tough-minded guys. And so it's not going to look pretty. Week 1, it rarely looks pretty. We've had some thinking back, I guess Atlanta was a good week 1 win in 21, but 22 was hard at Detroit. 23 was even harder at New England, and this one was hard too. But we were able to persevere, and we're not going to let anybody tell us that wasn't good enough, this wasn't good. We won the football game. We have things to clean up. We know we put ourselves in the right positions the way we prepared, and we're going to prepare off again going into the next week. I don't even know who we play next.
Fortunately, there's some extra time to figure out who we're playing and make a few adjustments. But let's get one thing straight. Kellen Moore fixed the offense, as QB1 praised the new OC afterward, while admitting they'll continue to work on that rhythm and it'll only get better. Although, if we look at the blitz numbers, Hurts was 6 for 7 with 91 yards and a perfect passer rating Friday night. Yet again, like I just said, you watched the game, I watched the game, and in an attempt to be objective, Jalen was far from perfect. Still though, the positive takeaway is that against the blitz, he was good. And maybe more importantly, Mr. Breed of One's demeanor is different than last season.
Jason no longer being center and you having to handle the protections with Cam. How do you think that all went? In fact, I think Jason at one point said the first time you were hot this year, you were able to complete the throw.
Who said that?
Kelsey on Twitter. Noticed
How do you get on Twitter?
What do you mean? I can still
That's
be
a
on
fine,
Twitter.
ain't it?
If you tweet, it's a fine.
Okay. It's a work in progress. Everything is a work in progress. You know, I know the notion out there, and you know, bring it. We'll respond.
Not to take away from the bigger point about the blitz, but Jalen's comment about Twitter is pretty hilarious and honestly a fair point. Moving on though, the offense made some changes which we expected, but to the extremes they went were wild, as Kellen Moore used motion 66% of the time, ranking as the highest mark in a game since 2020. Oh, and for the record, Jalen was 15 for 21 with 212 yards and 2 touchdowns when using motion. Meanwhile, when Sirianni's non-motion offense reared its ugly head, Jalen went 5 for 13 for 66 yards and 2 interceptions.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this.
Obviously, there's going to be plays when we don't use motion, but I think the bigger storyline is the fact that when we do, and actually the unpredictability of the offense is going to pay huge dividends. Also, I know we kept hearing about the potential of motion, but actually getting to see it for the first time in a real game, what are your thoughts on the new OC? Honestly, the only area that showed significant regression was the brotherly shove, with the Birds failing to convert on their first attempt. Now, they did end up getting it later in the game, but it'll be interesting to see how successful they can be or if the most unstoppable play is no longer unstoppable. By the way, in case you're not aware, the Athletic's Diana Rossini did highlight that there's a rule change that could affect the effectiveness of the play, saying the play remains legal, but a rule clarification now stipulates that pushers need to start at least 1 yard behind QBs, meaning the alignment would eliminate an immediate shove from behind. So yeah, that does change things. However, the Eagles also had a bad fumble due to a snap from Cam Jurgens, so the early operation just isn't clean enough. Alright, lastly, we'll see if Devin White is able to go this week, coming back from the ankle injury, and does he have a shot at reclaiming a starter spot? Naturally, we've got you covered as soon as any updates happen. And shout out to the over 130,000 of you guys who showed up to hang out and watch the game during the live stream. That was an absolute blast. So how about we run it back in a week? And for real though, I want to hear from you guys. What were your biggest takeaways from the game? The good, the bad, the ugly. Let's hear it. Until next time, this has been the Philly Special.